Hello everybody and welcome to the second video in this OpenCV Python tutorial series. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about some elementary drawing operations, so drawing lines, drawing circles, drawing rectangles, and drawing text. And yeah, that's all we're going to be doing. This is going to be a shorter video. This is going to be super simple, but we need to know this stuff before we can move on to the more advanced and fun things like, say, circling someone's face or, detecting people's eyes and drawing boxes around them and all that kind of stuff that we will do in later videos. Anyways, in front of me, I have a modified version of the code we had from tutorial 3. I've already explained all of the code that's on this screen. All I've done is, we can look at the tutorial 3 code, is I've removed all of the modifications and the creation of a new image that would have had 4 of the webcam images on it. And now instead, I'm just displaying the webcam image itself. So what I want to show you how to do is starting with drawing a line, and then we'll move on to the other shapes afterwards. So to draw a line is very straightforward. You're going to make a new image or a new variable. I'm going to call this img. This is going to be equal to, and then cb2, then dot, then line. Pretty intuitive. What we're going to pass is the image we want to draw this line onto. So in this case, I'm going to say frame. Then the starting and ending coordinate of the place we want to draw this line. So whenever we draw a line, we need a coordinate for the beginning of the line and a coordinate for the end of the line. We'll draw a line between those 2 points. So this is a good time to mention the coordinate system in OpenCV. So if you haven't realized already, the way that the coordinate system works in OpenCV and most kind of computer vision libraries or any image libraries in general in computing is that the top left-hand corner of your screen or of your image is 0, 0. So this is kind of opposite of your regular Cartesian plane where you have 0, 0 in the bottom left-hand corner. 0, 0 is in the top left, which means as you increase the X, you're going further to the right. And as you increase the Y, you're going further down. So if you were at, say, the width and height of your image, then you would be at the bottom right-hand corner of that image. So if you're at width, height, you'd be at the very bottom right. Anyways, what I'm going to do now is show you how we draw this line. So I'm going to say cb2.line and then frame. Then I'm going to pass 0, 0. That is the first coordinate that I want to draw this at. Then I'm going to pass my width and my height. So I'm going to draw from the top left-hand corner to the bottom right-hand corner. So those are the first 2 arguments for a line. After that, you need to pass the color of the line. So I believe actually BGR value, and then the thickness of the line. So inside of here, I'm going to pass my blue, green, red. If I want to draw a blue line, that would be 255, 0, 0. And then after that, I'm going to draw put the thickness of the line, sorry. So if I wanted this to be 10 pixels thick, I would put 10. So what this will do is it will draw this line on my frame, and then it will return a new image that has that line drawn on it. So now if I want to see that image, I will put img here. So since I'm using my webcam here and I'm just going to draw the image on top of the frame from my webcam, I need to deactivate it from OBS. So let me do that. And then I will run this and we will see if it is working. So there we are. We can see there is a blue line on the screen. You can still see my face as you normally would, but now every time it captures my face, it's also just drawing that line on the screen. So now let's draw another line. So there's a big X in the screen, and then I'll show you a few other shapes. So to quit, it's going to be Q. Let me reactivate my webcam. We'll go back into full screen mode here. And now I'm just going to copy this right here. I'm going to draw another line. So if I want to draw another line and I want that to be on top of or kind of crossing the line that I just did, then what I need to pass here now instead of frame is img, because this is the image that has the line drawn on it. So now I want to draw my other line on the other diagonal on this image. So rather than going 0, 0 with height, I'm going to go 0 and then height. And then I'm going to say width and 0. And that should do the other corners of my screen. All right, and then I'm going to change the color of this. So this is blue, green, red. So let's change this to green. So let's go 255. And let's make the line thickness 5. All right, so let's draw this. Let me deactivate the webcam. So we will continue in 1 second, but I need to quickly thank the sponsor of this video and this series, which is AlgoExpert. AlgoExpert is the best platform to use when preparing for your software engineering coding interviews. They have the highest quality coding interview questions, each of which has a conceptual overview and a code walkthrough that is in video format. It makes it much easier to understand the deep algorithms and kind of the complex way of solving those problems. So anyways, check out AlgoExpert from the link in the description and use the code TechWithTim for a discount on the platform. And there we go. Now we can see our 2 diagonal lines kind of creating an X on the screen. And well, that is how you draw lines. All right, so let's close that. And now let's move over and let's draw rectangles. So to draw rectangles is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to draw it on the same image that I have these lines on, just because I think that makes sense to do. We're going to say that img is equal to then cv2 dot, and can you guess what it is? Oh, it is rectangle, right? Pretty intuitive. We're going to draw it on our image. And then here I'm going to pass, I'm just looking at my notes here to make sure I don't mess this up. I'm going to pass the top left-hand corner of the rectangle, the bottom right-hand corner of the rectangle, the color, and the thickness or the fill for the rectangle. So again, top left, bottom right. So if you give 2 coordinates of the rectangle like that, then it will just automatically fill the rectangle between those coordinates. So let's see where we want to draw this. We can just pick an arbitrary position like 100, 100, and then we'll go and we'll draw it to 200, 200. My color of the rectangle, let's just go with kind of a gray color, which I think is like 128, 128, 128. And then for our thickness, let's make this 5. Now, if you wanted to fill this rectangle in, so you want it completely solid, not like a bordering or, just the strokes, you wanted it actually filled in, you would pass -1 here. So whenever you're given a thickness, in the exception of a line, for example, if you pass a -1, that will actually fill the entire thing. If you pass some other value, well, that will just be the thickness of the lines. So let's make this 5 thick, and let's just see how this works. So let's deactivate the webcam. Let's rerun this. So there we go. Now we can see we have kind of a gray square here that's popping up. And well, that is another shape that we can draw. Of course, you can draw as many of them as you want. You just have to kind of go with this pattern that I've been showing you. So let's quit that. Let's reactivate the webcam. And now let's draw a circle. So to draw a circle is again pretty straightforward. You can say img equals and then cv2 dot and then circle. Now the circle is going to take the base image. So img. It is then also going to take the center position, the radius, the color, and again, the fill or the thickness. So the center position of your circle is where the exact middle of the circle is going to be on the screen. And then when you give a radius, well, it will draw the circle, with that radius. So pretty straightforward to do a circle. Let's do this at like 300, 300. Then we want to pass our radius. So let's make this say 60 radius, so 120 in diameter. And then we'll pass our color. Let's make this red. So we'll say BGR, so that's 0, 0, and then 255 for red. And then let's fill this in. So let's make this -1. All right, so let's deactivate the camera. Let's run this. So it turns out that I spelled circle incorrectly. So let me spell that correctly. And now we'll rerun this and see if this works. All right, and there we go. We can see we now have a filled in red circle. I have my kind of gray square here, and I have my 2 diagonal lines. Now, the last thing to show you is how to draw text. And then, of course, I know this is just random shapes, but you could draw them in a more meaningful way that would make it look a little bit better. Anyways, let's quit that. Let's reactivate the camera, close that, and text. So to draw text is a little bit more difficult. The reason why is that we need to create a font first. So typically whenever you're drawing some type of text on the screen, you have to pick a font, you have to pick anti-aliasing, which is just kind of how they draw the lines. You need to pick the location of the text, you need the color, all of that stuff. Anyways, to make a font, which is the first step, what we're going to do is say font is equal to, and then CV2, and then this is going to be dot font, and then underscore, and then you can pick what font you want. Now, you can look at the documentation to see how all of these work, but I'm just going to go with Hershey Simplex. Again, pick whatever one you want. You have to look it up to see exactly what they look like, but this is kind of the standard one that most people use. It's just this one. So we'll go with Hershey and then Simplex like that. Then I'm going to say my IMG is equal to, and then CV2 dot, and then the syntax of this is actually put text. So to place text or put text on the screen, you write put text, you put the base image, which in this case is IMG, and then you put the name of the text that you want to display. So obviously we're going to go with something like Tim is great as the text that we put on the screen. You guys should do that as well. And then we're going to pick the bottom left-hand corner for this text. Now, I don't know why they decided to go with bottom left-hand corner and didn't just keep it consistent with top left, but the bottom left-hand corner is what you're doing here for where you want to draw the text. So if I want to draw the text near the bottom of my image, then I would draw this at, let's go, 200 and then comma, and then the height of my image, which is right here, and we'll just subtract 10. So it's kind of padded a bit off the bottom. So now that we have the bottom left-hand corner, what I pass is the font. So I'm just going to say font like that. You pass, you could just write cv2.font Hershey simple here instead of having the variable, but you just have to pass the font. So where we're going to pass that. Then once we have the fonts, we're going to pass the color. So let's just make this black. So 0, 0, 0. And then finally, you can pass an optional argument, which will actually change the way that this font is rendered. I'm not really going to explain this, but there's something called cv2.line_AA. So actually, I realized I made a small mistake here. Sorry for the cut there, but this cv2.line, I'm going to delete this for 1 sec. We'll rewrite it out. But actually, before that, what I'm going to put is the thickness of my lines. So you cannot put a -1 here, but you can put some integer representing the thickness of your line. So I'm going to put, let's say 5 for the thickness of the lines for my text. Then there is an argument called line type. And if you want to change the type of the line, then you can pass an optional value. Now, it's recommended that you pass cv2.line_AA. In the official documentation, it quite literally says this just makes the text look better. That's not verbatim, but that's kind of what it describes. It says this makes text look better. So I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to put cv2.line_AA, and that is the line type. So just to go through this again, because there's a lot, we have the base image, the text to actually render and draw on the screen, the bottom left-hand corner of the text. We then have the font. We then have the color. We then have the line thickness, and then we have the line type. Now, you don't have to pass all of those, but you do have to pass up to the line thickness, I believe. All right, now that we have that, let's deactivate the camera, and let's see what this looks like. So it turns out I have another error here. This error is that I forgot to specify the font scale. So I actually kind of misexplained this put text, just my mistake there. I missed one value. So after we specify the font, we need to define the scale of the font. Now, the scale of the font is just how much you're going to magnify the font by, essentially. So I'm going to put 4 here. So font 4, and I'll show you what it looks like at different values so you get an idea of what the scale actually does. But the scale is different than the line thickness. This is like the size of the font. So the font has a default size, which would be 1. And then you want to magnify, you go 2, you go 3, you go 4. So let's just look at it at 4, then we'll look at it at 1, and we'll see what that looks like. Anyways, let's run this and let's see. All right, so you can see I have some text on the screen now. It says Tim is, and then the great is cut off. We'll fix that in a second. But yeah, that is how you draw text. So let's now look at this with a scale of 1, just to see what the scale actually does. And yeah, we move from there. So let's change the font scale to be 1. Let's change the position so it actually starts at, say, 10 pixels. And now let's run this again. So now we see that this is a scale of 1. The font is obviously a lot smaller. And then we have our line thickness of 5, which is making it kind of look this like bold font here. So let's quit this. Let's just change this to scale of 2. And let's see how this one looks. So let's run that. And then after that, we're pretty much going to be done. That's all I need to show you guys for this tutorial series, just some basic drawing functions. All right, so now we have Tim is great. That looks a lot better. So I'm actually thinking that when you put the scale, that's quite literally magnifying the default scale of the font, which starts at 1 by some value. So you can actually put a decimal value there, a floating point value. So say 0.5 if you wanted the font or the text to be even smaller. If you go 3, it's going to be 3 times the size of the original font. All right, so that is all I had to show you. I'll quickly go back to the code here just so you guys can kind of have a quick cheat sheet. But again, this will be on GitHub. We have our lines, rectangles, circles, and text. So yeah, that's all I need to show you. So if you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in another YouTube video.